What if your next flip phone could send a message through space even when there's no signal? That might sound like science fiction, but it could be a real feature in Samsung's upcoming Galaxy Z Flip 7, thanks to a new chip called the Exynos 2500, with the launch expected in July 2025. This phone might do more than just flip open. It could help you connect in places where normal phones stop working. So what's so special about this new Exynos chip? Well, Samsung has built it using 3nm technology, which means it's smaller, faster, and uses less power than the older Exynos 2400 that was in the Galaxy S25 series. But one of the coolest things is the modem inside it, the Exynos 5400 5G modem. According to Skylo Technologies, a satellite service company, this modem will support NB-IoT NTN, which is short for Narrowband Internet of Things Non-Terrestrial Network. In simple words, it can talk to low Earth orbit satellites. That means, in emergency situations like getting lost in the mountains or stuck in an area with no mobile towers, you might still be able to send a message using satellite signals. Skylo already works with other big tech names like LG, Oppo, Tecno, and now Samsung too. They even partner with Harman Automotive to bring satellite features to cars, so they're not new to this game. But just because the chip can do it doesn't mean the feature will be active right away. Samsung could choose to turn it on or off depending on the market, business deals, or local rules. Now, let's talk about speed. A leaked test shows that a Galaxy Z Flip 7 powered by Exynos 2500 scored 2,012 points in Geekbench's single-core test and 7,563 points in the multi-core test. To compare, last year's Galaxy Z Flip 6 using the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 scored 2,251 and 7,131 in the same tests. That puts Exynos slightly behind in single-core, but ahead in multi-core, which shows it's powerful, especially since these are early. Numbers and final scores usually improve after software tweaks. There's also a lot of talk about which chip will actually power the Flip 7 when it hits shelves. Some reports say Samsung will use the Exynos 2500 in some regions and the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 or 8 Elite in others. In fact, the bigger Galaxy Z Fold 7 is rumored to get the Snapdragon chip globally. If true, this would mark the return of Exynos chips in Samsung's top-tier phones after a break. Have you ever tried taking a close-up photo of a flower or a bug, only to get a blurry mess or end up casting a shadow over your shot? Well, Google might have found a clever way to fix that with the upcoming Pixel 10. According to a recent leak, the Pixel 10 could bring a new camera trick that uses the phone's telephoto lens to take better macro photos, and that could mean sharper, clearer close-ups than ever before. Normally, phones use the ultra-wide camera for macro shots because it can focus at very short distances, but that often leads to lighting problems since the phone needs to be so close to the subject. With Google's new approach, the Pixel 10 might switch to using the telephoto lens when you're shooting something up close. This method, known as telemacro photography, allows you to stand farther back while still capturing detailed shots of tiny things like flowers or insects. The benefit here is simple: better lighting, less chance of scaring off a subject like a butterfly, and overall, a cleaner and easier shooting experience. Samsung briefly tried this with the Galaxy Z Fold 4, and Oppo and OnePlus are also experimenting with similar features. But Google seems to be taking it one step further by combining both the telephoto and ultra-wide cameras to get the best result depending on how close you are to your subject. So if you're super close, it might still use the ultra-wide lens. But if you're a bit farther away, the Pixel 10 could automatically switch to the telephoto lens. That kind of smart camera switching could make macro photography feel smoother and more natural without having to think about which mode to pick. On the current Pixel 9 Pro, Google used a 48 megapixels ultra-wide lens for macro focus. The idea of switching to the telephoto lens could make a noticeable difference because telephoto lenses usually have better optics and zoom performance, which means more clarity and more detail in your shots. Plus, by not needing to physically get so close to the subject, you're less likely to block your own light or create harsh shadows, which is something that often ruins macro shots. This change could be part of a broader camera upgrade for the Pixel 10 series. While nothing is official yet, Google is rumored to launch the Pixel 10 phones on August 20th, with all models possibly available by August 28th. That's about a week later than the Pixel 9 launch, but if it means better features across all models, most people probably won't mind the short delay. Google might also offer new color choices this time around. The regular Pixel 10 is said to come in Ultra Blue, Limoncello, Iris, and Midnight, while the Pro and Pro XL might show up in Sterling Gray, Light Porcelain, Midnight, and Smoky Green. What if Samsung gave you most of the Galaxy S25 features, but for a much lower price? Well, that's exactly what fans are hoping for with the upcoming Galaxy S25 FE. And based on what's happening behind the scenes, it looks like Samsung is getting ready to release it very soon. So here's what we know so far. Samsung already launched the Galaxy S25 Edge, a sleek and powerful phone. But now, the company is working on the more budget-friendly model in the series, the Galaxy S25 FE, and we just got a strong sign that its launch is getting close. A new software build for the Galaxy S25 FE was just spotted in South Korea. Before that, another version appeared in the United States. This means Samsung has started preparing the phone's firmware for different regions, and when firmware testing spreads like this, it usually means a device is close to being finished. In South Korea, the model is listed as SMS731K, while the US version is SMS731U. These model numbers line up with how Samsung usually names its Fan Edition phones. And here's something else. This phone will likely run Android 16 with one UI 8 right out of the box. That would make it one of the first Samsung phones to come with Android 16 at launch. Samsung has been pretty consistent with its Fan Edition phones, except for 2021, when they skipped one. Since then, they've released one every year. These phones give users solid performance, nice displays, and good cameras, all without the high flagship prices. The Galaxy S20 FE 5G, for example, was a massive hit. People loved that it gave them flagship-like features without breaking the bank. That's why the S25 FE is getting so much attention. It could be the next great value phone in the Galaxy lineup. Now, let's talk about what the S25 FE might offer in terms of hardware. Leaks suggest that the phone could come with the Exynos 2400 processor. This is the same chip used in some of Samsung's flagship phones, and it was even spotted in testing on the Geekbench platform, so performance should be more than enough for everyday tasks and even gaming. On the camera side, the Galaxy S25 FE might feature 50-megapixel main camera, along with a 12-megapixel ultra-wide lens and an 8-megapixel telephoto sensor. That's a pretty good setup for a phone that's expected to be more affordable. For selfies, it could use a 12-megapixel front camera, the same as the Galaxy A56. That's a decent upgrade compared to many budget phones that still use lower resolution front cameras. Samsung hasn't officially confirmed anything yet,